Hello everyone, my name is Brendon Leigh and welcome to this brand new video. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to master the Bahrain circuit on F1 23. So with that being said, let's get straight into the action and join me on the track. So now you join me on track here at the final corner in Bahrain. So let's imagine this was a qualifying situation. You want to be approaching the final corner and squaring off the car with its apex, trying to generate as many straight lines as possible on the exit here to make as good traction as possible, and opening up the power as hard as possible, opening DRS, and now you'll be starting your qualifying lap. In qualifying trim, you'll be over 200 miles an hour flying down to turn 1. You'll be on the outside of the track, and when you get to the 100-meter board, you'll be downshifted and braking 100%. All the way down into third gear. In fact, you're going to be hanging left as long as possible because this inside curve is a curve that you do not want to touch. It will unsettle the car, but you want to get as close to it as possible. You can see you want to be taking the constant radius through this corner, getting as close to that curve as possible, but never touching it as it will unsettle the car. On the exit of turn 1, you want to be in the middle of the track, or as close to the middle as possible. You definitely do not want to be all the way to the left-hand side of the track. Although it will gain you more speed through turn 1, it will compromise your speed through turn 2. Turn 2 isn't flat out, so it's critical that you approach it as much of a wide angle as possible so you can go as close to flat out that you can anyway. For this turn, you'll be short shifting into 4th gear, and you don't want to be taking any of the green on the inside because I find that can unsettle the car, but you do want to be using up as much of this red and white curve as possible. Like I say, you'll be in 4th gear and you'll be accelerating through, careful on the power. On the exit of turn 2 into what is technically turn 3, you want to be riding over this drain. You can see just in the middle where I'm putting my right tyre, there is in fact a drain there. So you want to be putting your right tyres above the drain, and this will stop your car scrubbing and the floor hitting the curb and losing speed because of that. The other option is to only go in this first segment of the curb. This is much less risky, and the car will not bottom out. If you're running very low ride height, I would advise running only the first segment of the curb and not running over a drain. If you're running a slightly higher ride height, then you can get away with running over the drain. Again, in Formula 1, it's all about compromises, so maybe compromising turn 3 with a slightly lower ride height will be faster for an overall lap time. And now you're going to be full power, opening up DRS as quick as possible. Turn 4 is actually very difficult. It's very easy to lock the rears and overheat and scrub and slide the rear tyres. You're going to be all the way over this white line entering the corner and braking at the 100-meter board. You're going to be going down into 4th gear and hanging your car over this curb as much as possible, and you'll be waiting, and the car can become a little bit unsettled as you cross back over this curb, just because the red and white curb produces less grip than the tarmac does, so it's very easy to lock up a tyre. So that might be why if you're approaching turn 4 and braking over the curb, you sometimes find that you lock up. It's just that the tyre is crossing back over the curbing, and that's where the traction loss and the grip loss happens. So now you'll be approaching, and much like turn 1, you do not want to be hitting the inside curb, but just getting as close to it as possible. This corner is relatively quite tight on the exit for the speed that you're carrying in, so you want to not get on the power too early. Do not get greedy, especially as you can see just about here. There's a very small undulation in the track as you're coming down here, so it's very, very subtle and very hard to spot, but you are going slightly downhill at this very moment in time, and that can cause snaps of oversteer and traction loss that in a qualifying situation will cost you a little bit of time, but in a racing situation will cost you a lot of tyre wear and tyre temperature as well. That will affect you later on in the race and the lap indeed. On the exit curb, you want to be placing your car just on this little bit above the drain. You do not want to be fully over the curb as the car will bottom out. If you are only on this part of the curb, you can see it's actually quite bouncy already, whereas if this top part of the curb, it's actually very smooth. So you want to be running your car along that as much as possible, and that will help you get as good of an exit that you possibly can do. Into what will be turn 5 and 6, one of the most technical parts on the track. I like to point my car in a straight line towards this apex, and what that allows me to do is be consistent with my line and have a much easier approach. So what you want to do is get two wheels on this left-hand curb. I don't really like to go over it. In some instances, it can be faster to go over left-hand curb, but it can definitely be very unpredictable and cause a lot of oversteer and possible floor damage for the car on certain damage modes. Like I say, the car will be fully on the left-hand side curb. You're originally entering in 6th gear. Qualifying trim, I do like to keep it in 5th gear. You don't really want to touch this inside curb as it can make the car understeer, so you want to be just hugging this white line. And now, as soon as you get out, you'll be coming out of this corner, approaching turn 6, roughly about here. What's critical about turn 6 is to be able to take it flat out. You do not want to be lifting, so anything that you need to compromise in turn 5 to ensure that you can take turn 6 flat out will more than be good enough for your lap time, and the compromise will give you better lap time overall. Exiting turn 6, you only want to be on this part of the curb. Unlike the curbings before, if you do go over this drain, the car will bottom out and you probably will get a track warning, and you'll definitely lose at minimum 2/10 of lap time relative to what you can do in an ideal situation. So as soon as you get off this curb and get out of the corner, pull the car as hard as you can to the left-hand side, and you'll be braking where there is no marker, to be honest. This corner is very instinctual and requires a lot of technique, finesse and feeling to be able to meet the apex. The rear tyres, especially in a qualifying situation, are extremely hot, overheated and losing grip as you approach this part of the lap. It's downhill as well, what makes the traction and the, well, I should say braking ability even more difficult. You will be approaching this corner in 6th gear, and I like to go down into 3rd, braking on the gully on the left hand side or on the red and white curb if you cannot be that precise. I don't like to go fully over onto the painting segment on this game, as it can cause a bit of grip loss on this corner. You'll be going for a very late downshift to 3rd gear because the car is very oversteery and you want to do a late downshift to not unsettle the car. Basically, that is the logic that I apply anyway. Like every corner really so far, you do not want to be taking inside curb, at most just a white line on the inside. You can actually use the exit curb here with 2 wheels. In my opinion, you do get better traction on the tarmac, but if you have a slight amount of understeer in the middle of the corner and require to run onto the exit curb, it is not the end of the world, and you can still have a more than good enough exit out of this corner sequence. Coming up to very treacherous turn 10, the hardest braking zone on the calendar, to be honest, in my opinion. It's very difficult. And if you can see where my car is straight ahead right now, you can see that there's an orange barrier. And that is my best ability to have a braking marker. In the qualifying and in most racing situations, I do not have a braking marker for this corner. I prefer just to go off instinctual feeling. But when I do need a braking marker, maybe when I'm following a car or I'm looking to be consistent and manage tyre temperatures or a racing situation, I prefer to use this orange marker board just ahead of me as a very good place to brake. It's critical to open up this corner as much as possible, and you will be going down into 3rd gear. The technique for this corner is much like any other corner before. Do not touch this outside curb as it will cause a lot of oversteer, but as straight as possible. You want to be entering this corner as wide as possible, so when you're in this final phase of the braking zone, you can be keeping the car as straight as you possibly can. The track will go down into a bit of a dip, so it's quite easy to lose rear traction and lock up the rears as you get towards the apex. Like I say, you will be in 3rd gear. Do not hit the inside curb, but get as close to the white line as you possibly can. And unlike many situations before, you'll be running all the way over this exit curb in 4th gear. The traction is very, very, very limited on this exit curb, but the mid-corner speed that you gain from having the wider track more than makes up for the traction loss on the curb. While you're on this red and white part of the curb, you are managing the throttle, but basically as soon as you get to this point of the track and this curb, Unless you have overheated the rear tyres, you should be able to go full throttle pretty comfortably and open up DRS to get a bit more straight hand speed as well. Flying down this back straight, and you'll be braking all the way on this red and white curb, and you'll be braking when that black safety car board on the right hand side, when you get equal with it, or the 15-meter board, but the 50-meter board quite often gets destroyed in racing situations, so it's better if you can use this black safety car board on the top right hand side of your screen. You'll be going down into 4th gear. The corner is quite naturally understeery as the tyres are very overheated at this point in the lap. Do not take the inside curb, but only go up to the white line. The exit is so difficult here because the tyres, like I mentioned so many times in Bahrain, are suffering, screeching, they're overheating like crazy. So it's very critical to not use the exit curb. If you do understeer onto the exit curb, it's very critical that you do not apply full power here, as you probably will spin or at least understeer wide and bottom out on this curb and end up somewhere on this outside wall. What in every single case is not ideal. So you only want to be going up to this white line. As soon as you feel confident to go to full power, bring the car back over to the left, and now you'll be setting up this high-speed right-hander. They don't do this in real life. This is a bit more of a feature of the game, but you do want to be 2 wheels on this curb because it can help lower the distance, and in a qualifying situation help rotate the car as well, by just being on this inside curb. Basically, the logic is, when you're on this inside curb, it will just help pull the car round. If you're off the inside curb, you don't have that extra track width and will make the corner a few meters tighter. Will have a negative effect on your tyre temperatures, as well. You have to travel more meters on the lap, so that's going to cost you lap time. By being on the inside curb, you're going to travel a few meters less, and you're going to be able to look after your tyre temperatures a bit more efficiently as you approach into the end of the second sector. And into the end of the second sector, you're going to be braking on this smooth part of the curb, much like the exit of turn 4, as I mentioned earlier in the lap. You don't really want to be going fully over the curb, as that will cause the car to bottom, just on this smooth part of the curb on the left-hand side. You're going to be braking around where this Pirelli board is. Again, there isn't really much of a marker coming up into this corner, but when you get to this sort of red, or I should say orange marker board on the right-hand side for the fire safety with the marshal, or the Pirelli board on the right hand side is a good place to brake, and you'll be looking for an exceptionally late apex, as the exit is way more critical than the entry in this corner. You'll be going down into 4th gear and smooth on the power. Again, do not take the inside curb, but take all of the exit curb here as well, because it will help you get more speed and traction onto the straight. Coming up into the final corner where we began this tutorial, you'll be all the way on the left hand side braking at the 100-meter board. You'll be in 8th gear going down into 4th gear. It's very critical to try and turn in earlier than you actually expect. As the track falls away from you, it goes downhill and you lose grip naturally when you go downhill in a racing car. To explain that very quickly, if you're going downhill, you typically lose grip. If you're going uphill, you gain grip. So that's a bit of the logic there, and I'll explain it more in detail in a future video. Again, do not take this inside curb, as it will unsettle the car and cause traction loss onto the longest straight on the track, i.e. the pit straight, but get as close to that white line as possible. In 4th gear and use up all the exit curb as possible. It will cause a bit of traction loss, but like I say earlier in the lap, like turn 10, the mid-corner speed gain is more than enough to make up for the traction loss on the exit. And then pull through the gears, pull the car off the exit curb, and open up DRS as quickly as possible. And that will be your hot lap of the Bahrain circuit. Hopefully you found this video helpful, informative, and you can improve your racing around Bahrain. Put in the comments down below what track do you want me to do next, and I'll make it my top priority to get that video out for you next week. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Brendon Leigh, and I will catch you in the next video. For now, have a great day, and I will see you soon. Ciao, ciao. Bye, bye.